What is going on, everyone? So this week's video is something a little bit different. I have two books that I'd like to share. They're from two of my favorite photographers. Absolutely beautiful work, beautiful presentation, very thoughtfully created. And some of you may already own these books, and if you do, that is fantastic. And if you don't, they are still available for purchase. You'll find links down below in the show notes, and you have the opportunity to see some absolutely beautiful work in print. So we're going to start with a book by a photographer by the name of Andrew Baruffi, and the book's title is Heal. And it is a pretty good sized book here, cloth cover, embossed image of a great blue heron there on the front, which will make a lot more sense as you read through the book. And I've made some selections here in terms of some of the images I like to show you. But also I'd purchased the version that came with the print, and this is in a vellum envelope there along with the story behind the image. And that's one of the things that is absolutely fantastic about this book, in that every single image is accompanied by the story, and it's something I think you really need to read for yourself in order to take it all in, but it adds a whole nother depth to the images themselves when you hear the backstory. And I think back to some of the photos that I've taken through the years, and I couldn't tell you what year some of them were taken in. So there's something really about this process of him being very much in the moment and how the photos are going to match with the story, and you read so much more into it. It gives so much more meaning to the images. But this right here is one of my favorites from the book. Just in whiteout conditions, these beautiful dead trees, a couple stumps there, this one slumped over. Just very, very symbolic image, and very, very calm, kind of haunting, showing some degree of sorrow, but it is a absolutely beautiful image there as well. And the next one here, I don't think I quite did my bookmarks in the best orientation here, but a scene like this with the beautiful reflected light, dried cottonwood tree there, cottonwood leaf. Looks like a tree though, the structure of the veins there. But just, these are the fleeting sort of moments that don't last very long. The wind is going to blow around the leaves. Pretty soon this cracked mud will get trampled, will go away, the light will move on, but absolutely beautiful scene, and very much the same sort of subject that I look for in Zion. And I should mention that Andrew, although he currently lives on the East Coast, he is from the area near Zion, and so this is his stomping ground. And being a local to the area, you have the ability to observe nature on an ongoing basis and see how things change on a daily basis. And so much of that is reflected in Andrew's work. And noticing some of these smaller details, like in this photo here, which represents very much in the way fleeting moments. So after the floods go through and the mud starts to dry, in this case it leaves behind these absolutely fascinating patterns with this grouping of rocks there, all of which is in beautiful reflected light. So a scene like this could very well be gone the next day as the conditions continue to change. So absolutely beautiful image, and I'd be very happy to have anything like that in my portfolio. Go to my next bookmark here. Probably should have had the bookmarks on the bottom so I can access them a little bit easier. A scene like this with this absolutely beautiful cottonwood in fall color, and then the background is a bit more neutral, a bit more somber, with the fall color very much in the rearview mirror. But scenes like this in Zion are ones I've actually looked for quite a while. And with a person like Andrew, who's as familiar with Zion as he is, to be able to find a beautiful subject like this hidden in plain sight really goes to show the knowledge of the park, and being able to find one's way around, and just, it's an absolutely beautiful scene. So I'd be very happy to have an image like that in my own portfolio. You'll probably hear me say a lot about that, about Andrew's work. And this one here. And then here we go. Some ice with some reflections of some of the sandstone cliffs, flowing water. Everything fits so beautifully within the composition here. And I should say that when it comes to Andrew's work, I was trying to figure out when it was that I first became aware of it. I think it had to have been perhaps 2019. And I believe it was through Instagram. He probably sent me a message or something along those lines. Because I remember there was a time when I was walking through a slot canyon in Zion. It was during the winter. There was some snow on the ground. And I believe that either I walked through there first and then he walked through there afterwards, and I kind of jokingly apologized for leaving behind the footprints, or it was the other way around, but it was something along those lines. And I remember that I would be at work and he would just find these absolutely beautiful scenes, and he would have a video on Instagram in his stories showing the back of his camera and then the subject, and just pinpointing just to find these beautiful tiny little scenes among everything else. And I always enjoyed that as a bit of escape, just to see what he would come away with. And the ice patterns in Zion are something that I've also found very therapeutic to photograph, because they represent fleeting moments and chance occurrences in terms of leaves that are embedded in ice at just the right place as the formations happen. And having photographed some of these same pools myself, I know how difficult it can be at times in terms of having these wonderful subjects, but not being able to quite get your camera in exactly the right place in order to photograph it. And these thin edges of ice, sometimes with water in it, sometimes you're balanced on boulders nearby. But to find these beautiful, clean compositions there, he just does such an amazing job at being so aware of his surroundings. Same here, some ice bubbles down below there, the thin surface of the frozen water with the leaf embedded in the ice there. And it just looks like a message being typed out in Morse code. So these are the scenes that so many people would be more prone to simply walk right past, but it's absolutely beautiful subjects hidden in plain sight. Another one here with this leaf with its trail when this was not completely frozen, but then it freezes over at night and just leaves behind absolutely fascinating patterns. So this absolutely beautiful composition. And the stories that go along with these images, it adds so much to the photography. I mean, the photography in itself is absolutely stunning, but you get a whole nother level of depth when you read the story behind it. And Andrew is very open about his struggles with mental health, and how going to Zion and spending time there was a wonderful escape for him, and also quite therapeutic for the process. And this one also stood out to me quite a bit, because in all the times that I've been to Zion, I will certainly, see the birds and the wildlife there, but I've never seen them quite like this before. So this beautiful woodpecker here, clinging onto a tree with some lichen on there, set against a background of very soothing colors of the warm sandstone there, and very soft light, and just the color palette, the textures, very clean composition. It's absolutely beautiful work. And the final one I will share here has a bit of a personal connection as well. This is a photo he took in October of 2020. And actually I bumped into him this particular day. And so it was fascinating to read his story of the encounter, but also to have my own perspective of the events that day. And to see that he found this absolutely beautiful composition there, and to know that I was, I don't know, maybe about a half mile or so away, and I was setting up for a scene that just didn't work out so well. But absolutely beautiful work. So I highly recommend this book. You'll find a link down below in the show notes. It's called Heal by Andrew Baruffi. And not only does it have the absolutely beautiful imagery, but the stories behind it, it really adds so much more depth to it. So that's one I very, very highly recommend. And the next book is by Eric Bennett. This one came out about a year ago. And again, another absolutely beautiful work. And Eric's work is, I don't know how he does it. I mean, quite honestly, absolutely stunning. And the work in this book, I forget the specific dates, but it was gathered over the course of a relatively short period of time, like a couple years or something along those lines. He very much prefers the smaller, more intimate scenes. Again, much like I do, though he also has some grand vistas in there as well. And Eric's book, as you will see, is definitely quite heavy on images, which is very, very fantastic. He has writing to set up each of the categories of the imagery, but then once you're in it, you just get lost in the images themselves. And it's an absolute beautiful presentation because you have the opportunity to pair images together, which I think is a very fascinating process because those images will play off of each other. And so we start with these images of some fallen aspen leaves. And not only is each individual image absolutely beautiful, but the way that they pair together just makes for a very, very wonderful presentation. And you'll see several more along those themes. And the next one I want to pull up is another pairing of images with some fallen aspen leaves in the snow, and then some leaves embedded in the ice. And you can see the similarities between Eric's work and Andrew's work in terms of these beautiful small scenes that can be, in my opinion, more telling than showing the grand landscape, because just by seeing the details and observing the details, there's so much we can take in from the surrounding landscape. These are some of my absolutely favorite, this is probably my favorite pairing in the entire book. So what you're looking at here is there's natural oil that builds up on the surface of the water. I think some of it comes from the decaying of leaves and such. But you get these very small areas that have these absolutely fascinating patterns. And in some cases, the leaves are blown away or they sink below the surface, or in another case, they leave behind these ghosts. And then the oil just stays there around the outside of it. So I have yet to find just that perfect oil photo for my own portfolio. But I think Eric has enough of those to fill an entire book, which is absolutely beautiful work. Also wanted to pull up this pairing here. So not only do we have these beautiful light-colored areas, in this case some eroded deposits, in this case some sand, but the color, the lighting, the swooped angles, I mean, you can just imagine how beautiful this pairing would look on a wall, really nicely framed. So I am incredibly jealous of all the work in the book here. And then another fine pairing with some ice abstracts, surface of a lake or a pond there, and then the icicles there. So absolutely stunning work. And then a selection I figured I'd show from some of the areas from the desert canyons, some of the beautiful reflected light in there, the curves and everything sculpted so beautifully by nature. And finally, another of my favorite pairings in the book, fallen cottonwood leaf in some wet mud ripples and reflected light, and then also some mud ripples there in reflected light. And that's, I mean, these pictures really, there's something about seeing a subject in reflected light that just makes it so dimensional, so real, and just gets me excited about, you know, wandering through some of the canyons back in there. But Eric's book, as well as Andrew's book, both still available for purchase. You'll find a link down below in the show notes. But absolutely sensational work, truly inspiring work. And I love these books, and I think that you will also. I'll do some more of these videos and highlight some of the other books as well, but I figure 2 books per video is probably a pretty safe bet to ease into it. But I want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you around next time.